We recognize the choreography immediately. Two men stand in a dusty street at midday, hands hovering over their holsters. In a dim saloon, a gambler holds a pair of black eights and black aces, the dead man's hand. These images are synonymous with the American West, and they originate with one man, James Butler Hickok. To the public, he was Wild Bill. This archetype was so respected that in 1953, President Dwight Eisenhower invoked it in a speech. Growing up in Hickok's town, the president claimed, meant living by a code where you met your disagreements face to face, so long as the bullet was in front. But the historical record describes a man who frequently shot from concealment, operated as a professional gambler, and in a moment of panic, shot his own deputy in the head. James Hickok was a chaotic, often panicked participant in frontier violence. The question is, why did the American public choose to replace him with the flawless hero, Wild Bill? Hickok did participate in a rare, documented instance of a one-on-one quick-draw duel. In 1865, he faced off against Davis Tutt in a Springfield, Missouri town square. 2 years later, Harper's Magazine turned this local gambling dispute into a national sensation, using it to introduce Hickok as a brand-new hero from what they called the inexhaustible reservoir of the Great West. That same article recounted an incident at Rock Creek Station. It claimed Hickok single-handedly dispatched a 10-man gang of Confederate sympathizers using a rifle, a pistol, and a blade. When historians finally reviewed the Rock Creek records, they found a different story. Hickok had shot a rancher named David McCandless, who was likely unarmed, from behind a curtain while Hickok was hidden in a back room. Writers took these documented ambushes and reframed them as fair fights, creating a trope of righteous self-defense that sold thousands of magazines. In 1871, Hickok was appointed marshal of Abilene, Kansas. The legend born from this period describes a grim, vigilant peace officer who imposed a cast-iron rule on a tempestuous cattle town. General George Custer helped build this image. In his memoirs, he described Hickok as one of the most perfect types of physical manhood and praised him for always being justified in his killings. Records from Abilene civilians suggest a different tenure. Hickok rarely patrolled the streets, instead spending his time playing poker at the Alamo Saloon and employing deputies to do the work he was hired for. His marshalship ended after a chaotic shootout with gambler Phil Coe. In the confusion, Hickok fired at a man running toward the scene to assist him. That man was his deputy, Mike Williams, whom Hickok killed instantly. Popular literature largely ignored the accidental killing of Williams. Authors found more success depicting Hickok as a model officer, scrubbed of the errors that defined his actual time in Kansas. In 1873, William Buffalo Bill Cody recruited Hickok for a touring stage melodrama. These performances presented Hickok's frontier life to urban audiences in the East. Show programs and biographies rebranded him as a born plainsman who was never quarrelsome, but whose wonderful skill with a pistol was unequaled in the West. When historians in the 1920s began publishing evidence of Hickok's ambushes, they were met with public fury. Institutional figures, like the secretary of the Kansas State Historical Society, lashed out at these iconoclasts for damaging Hickok's reputation. By the mid-20th century, the biographical record had become a collection of stage stories and dramatized memoirs. The person named James Hickok was largely replaced by the character Wild Bill. James Hickok was murdered on August 2, 1876, shot in the back of the head by Jack McCall while playing poker in Deadwood. While the man died in a saloon, the stories surrounding his marshalship and his duels continued to expand in biographies and stage shows for the next 90 years. This preference for the story over the fact appeared even in historical societies. Leaders like William Connolly defended the legend because they believed Hickok made the West a place for decent men and women to live in. They needed to believe that frontier violence was governed by a gunfighter's code of fair play, rather than the reality of disorganized, often accidental bloodshed. These legends allowed the public to organize a chaotic past into a moral narrative. They took a deeply flawed frontiersman and turned him into a symbol of order, even if that order was a work of fiction.